Welcome everyone to the video, and today we're looking at what if Civilization started over 2 Human Scenario, Age of Conflict. Now this is the last episode where we have the Age of Conflict, because I'm just gonna say, shit is going to get very superstitious around here. We're gonna see some very important things happen, probably a few nations falling, probably a few nations coming into existence, but most likely we're going to see some people dying, some people coming back to life, so something like that. If you guys like the video, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. It helps out the algorithm, and I'm gonna see you guys in the video. Now, since our last visit to America, there's been a lot that's been happening. One thing that is sure is that Mexican pirates, land pirates, or bandits, have started to make their own bandit nation, the first one ever to exist. And technological advancements continue to actually continue. Around this time, many nations have started to actually build up their military, started to conscript people, like all of that. They have started to implement conscription. Anyone who's not in the military, who's below like 19 years old, who looks young and is below 19, is to be drafted. And some mothers are trying to keep their sons out of the possibility of being in the army. But one nation that is doing it so well and actually calls it conscription is Essex. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually Ankara, as Ankara has implemented this very well. And around this time, the Bulgarian war starts to have its end, as the Bulgarians have eventually made a small headway into these areas. They at some point got news, the Ankarans got news that the selling of these territories allowed for this to happen, and the further selling of these territories allowed for a further taking of one village, which was too much for them to allow, so they had to take it back, and that's what they did. They took it back, but soon after they would suffer again a much larger invasion. This time it would also concern the motherland itself, as Thrace was attacked. The motherland would be defended quite well, and eventually the Bulgarians would win over here in the rest of Thracia. But I'm just gonna say the reason why this is not a capital yet is because it's to keep these guys less powerful. Also because they're working to kind of annex this guy. But also it's because the Thessals have around this time started to ally themselves with surrounding powerful nations, as they have started their war against their, well, part of them, which kind of decided to break away. So far they have been doing quite well. They managed a few attacks, and they have already managed to almost take the capital, which is this one. I am not gonna color it the capital because it's currently in the position to become a actual small city. But as we can see, many of these regions start to fall until the Greek coalition starts to form. And what is the Greek coalition? Well, it's these nations that have decided to go into a war with their enemy, basically. So forces start to arrive on the borders, and they quickly push back the Thessal Empire's troops over here, fully pushing them back, and even helping this guy to make their first gain of the war as they start to cross the borders. With this, we see that the Albanian forces independently will also start to attack the Thessals, although that's over a border dispute. Something that was done over this small territory, which was quickly resolved and, well, given over to Albania. With that, we see that a good of friends, yeah, the Thessals are getting pummeled. An army starts to move across these regions, although it stopped at the capital, and soon they are going to attack further into these areas. Quick advances also destroyed the attack over here towards some very important territory, I'm gonna say, because the Thessals weren't ready. The Thessalians weren't ready for the attack that would come, and the attack was a full-on encirclement and push-on movement. So push-on is basically a movement that is done after an encirclement, and basically you have forces still go over there and other forces just split off to continue the attack to stop any enemy advancements. Eventually it will continue into this town, and eventually this town would fall, with the last stronghold over here being this village, and this town would also fall. The Thessals would start to fall, and with that they'd start to sell territory off to make sure that their people would be in great hands. The Bulgoskayans will start to also enslave the Thessalians, just because, and also because they also won this war, gaining these territories. With the Bulgoskayans again up on the roster for being stronger, we see that the Polish will start a full-on war against them. Now this war is short-lived. The Polish thought they were going to have an easy win against this tribal nation. They thought it was tribal. Instead, they found a heavily organized, heavily equipped force that was waiting for them at the first town, which was this town over here. They took a village outside, and then took another one up north, and then they went at the town and got beaten back towards these two villages. And eventually they got pushed back so hard that they would eventually just leave the continent entirely. The Bulgoskayans would also start their own campaign into these guys, eventually just taking out many of the Polish forces, and also forcing the Polish to give up Transylvania. Transylvania would be very important, as these regions were basically the Transylvanian must-have. As if you don't have Transylvania, what do you have? Basically nothing. And also I know Transylvania is a bit more up tier, but it's something, okay? It's something at least. They also gave some more territory over to Odessa, which was happy to take these lands, and also to ally with the Bulgoskayans. The Montenegrins eventually started to also promise some good benefits to the Neanderthals, and eventually started to also learn the people of the Neanderthal people's language, and did not enslave them like other nations did, although they did have some slaves of the Neanderthals. They also had some sapien slaves, so it's kind of balanced out. Eventually, after taking this much territory, the Italians would want to force these guys to kind of fall. Noplosia would at this point be in such bad straits that they would have to give independence to their most southern and most important regions, as these regions were demanding their independence. They really wanted it, and they were given it. Seeing this, the Heel also demanded independence. Although they were given half of what they previously had, they were still okay with it. Then came this one country that once existed. It managed to actually declare its independence, but also fought a bit for its independence. And it also was known as the base, or the base of the boot. Eventually, the siege of Thessal began. The siege of Thessal would not be a very strong battle, although the main battle that would begin would be the Battle of Thessal. And with it beginning, the first action would be by the Thessalians, who would charge some of their troops out into the countryside, trying to take a village that would be on the countryside, to eventually kind of link up with the troops over here and then crush the attackers from the behind and do what they did. Although it would be futile, as they would be stopped at this village, from where they would be attacked again. They would be pushed back up to this village, from where they'd get news that they were being attacked at Thessal, and they'd have to pull back, in which they had to give up. And eventually the islands over here were taken. It was just a large desperancy for the bad thing for the guys who got attacked. Eventually, we see that the vassals would collapse with two nations that would actually form, out of them being this nation who wouldn't really want to be a successor to the vassals because they knew what would happen to the second vassal empire. And then came the Mechlans. Mechlans would be a actual tribe within the Thessalian Empire, and they would actually try to gain territorial gains, but not much would be done. Eventually, these territories would be annexed by this guy, which would also start to include some of these territories up north. Finally, they would gain some of these territories, while the rest would go over to these guys, who would eventually just take the rest of this. Also, they would give the Albanians what they kind of claimed over here, because they don't want any beef with the Albanians, who would be very happy about this. And with that being their last claim, we see that the Spartans over here, who played kind of a pivotal role, would also start to see some economical problems. So they would be puppeted by their larger neighbor. Eventually, a union between these two would bring these two under the Athens people, and the Spartans would try as much as they would, but it was no use. The coalition of the coalition of Greece would dissolve after the war, and with Thessal being taken over, we see that these two would also start to form a greater nation called the Greek Empire, which would have no capital as of now. But I'm just gonna tell you guys, the nations that were going to be under it are going to have one of the best days of their life, as this nation would join the Greek Empire. This nation would actually become a vassal, same with this guy, and quickly these guys became the first Greek nation, although the Greek Empire would be set around Athens, because it would be farther from that. Their main largest city would be that, until something very important happened. With some of these people being very bitter about their loss of their nation, we see that this nation, the first Greek nation, would take over a lot of territory and would become quite powerful. With its power will come a lot of different things. But the main thing is the first time thing being that they would start to force some territories under their borders or their vassals to join slowly. And we quickly see that the vassals would be okay with this as long as it was slow. It was slow, very slow in fact. It took months to do all of this. But eventually they even gave some of these territories over because of Albanian threats to take out a lot of Greek people if they didn't. We quickly see that this town would actually be saved from the Albanian claim thing, and eventually the rest of this would fall. Sparta would continue to resist until people would be like, yo, just give up. It's no point at this point there's no point in stopping this. And slowly villages started to join this whole thing until the town was left, and Sparta eventually gave up. The only nation that didn't join this was Crete, who decided that they wanted to still be independent while also remaining friends with Athens, who at this point started to kind of beef over these territories over here because they really wanted this. This would give them a direct trade route with the Ancyrans, and would also be very beneficial for these guys. Although that would be talked about, the main thing to be talked about would be the annexation of these territories by the Bulgoskayans. Why am I saying annexation? Because territories over here being taken is called annexation, because unknown territories being annexed is more appealing in the world of words than just something else. Eventually, the Balkans would look very different, with the first Bulgarian Empire, or the Bulgar Empire, starting to form quite well. Over here, we see that these guys would start to fight over these guys over here, and the Bavarians would actually unite this guy under them, and also would start the retaking of their own old homeland. Although this would be very small and very futile, it would be a very, very important thing. And like I said, technological advancements would continue, and with that, I'm also gonna say, not only would technological advancements continue, they would be playing a pivotal role in the upcoming war, as Napoleon, who finally fell into obscurity, would kind of dissolve the last one of the last alliances that there were, but eventually two alliances would form. Two very important ones. The Iberian Pact, which would look something like this, and the Moroccan coalition, which would look something like this. As you can see, both members have 5 very important members, but 2 of them, basically these 2 being the most important of both alliances, would actually start to do some things. As we see, the Malagans would start to form a bit of a thought of word, as both their new friends over here, who I just kind of made them occupy, and the Portuguese, who is kind of their enemy, would start to kind of become very important for the Malagans. But what they didn't know was that these 2 were also in the coalition of Madrid. And around this time, I'm going to just say that the video shall end here, although the Libyans will take the last bit over here of the Carthaginians territory, and the Empire of Libya will be declared, with regions being taken over. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna see you guys in the next video. Let's hope that this war that is coming up next video is great, as episode 45 ends here. Good day.